And here's semi-final two. Mohammed Elshorbagy, the rising star of the PSA World Tour. He takes on the world #1, Nick Matthew. Well, Chris, just to quickly reiterate, so that hopefully you can rejuvenate yourself and redeem yourself for the second semi-final. What is your prediction for this second semi-final? Who's going to win and by what score? Please get it right.
Well, I think earlier in the program I called Mohammed Elshorbagy, so I think I probably should stick to my guns. I'll call the upset Mohammed Elshorbagy. I'm going to go 3-2.
Well, thank you for that. Short and sweet. Let's go back down to courtside with your MC for the second semi-final, Gilly Lane.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, our second and final match of the night of the Power Courts 2013 PSA World Series Squash Finals here at the Westwood Club. We just saw a very entertaining match with Ramy Ashour booking his place in the finals tomorrow night at 7:30. But we have another amazing match in store for you. The English #1 against the Egyptian #2. But first on court, the winner of Group B, the Egyptian #2. Please welcome Mohammed Elshorbagy. And his opponent, the English #1, the world #1, and the second place finisher in Group A. Please welcome from England, Nick Matthew.
So both players on court for the second semi-final. Mohammed Elshorbagy's starting to get in familiar territory in these World Series finals, but it's his first time here in Richmond. Let's hear what he's got to say about the tournament and also the players.
Of course, is great, especially when you're playing against the best 8 players in the world, and to be able to survive and get to that semi-final spot is of course something really good. But the tournament is not finished for me yet. You know, you never aim for just to reach the semi-final. You always aim to win the tournament, and I'm gonna go out there and give it my best and see how it will go. I played Tariq. I was 11-5 and 10-5 match ball up. I had 10 match points, could not finish them, and knowing that after I lost, when I went on court with James, knowing that if I was going to lose, I was going to be either 4 or 1, was such something really hard to take, because I knew I was playing well in the tournament, and I just couldn't sleep after the match start. I slept at 8 a.m. I just could not take my mind off the match, and it was just hard. And at the same time, I knew I was going to be tested big time against James mentally, and it's moments like this defines who you are, you know. Against Nick, it's always a hard battle, you know. But before I went on the final with him in Qatar, you know, I had to study his strengths and his weaknesses, which you always do against any player. And I mean, his strengths is so much in his mentally. He's so strong. He's the strongest on tour. And my strength is that I always had that belief in me that I could always beat any player, whatever my age is. And that belief, like I told myself before the match, if he's strong mentally, I could always go and try to be there and even be stronger mentally than him.
Mohammed Elshorbagy is at #4 in the world rankings, 23 years of age. He's the youngest man in this World Series finals. He won the Motor City Open in Detroit just only 4 or 5 weeks ago. He's won 8 PSA World Tour titles. Well, his opponent in the red t-shirt there, Nick Matthew, who has played so many World Series finals, and he's played so many other previous tournaments here in Richmond. But let's hear what the Yorkshireman's got to say about his time in North America.
Yeah, it's a great event. You know, it's the pinnacle of the year in terms of the top 8, the ones that have been consistent over those World Series events, fighting out for that sort of title of tour champion for the year type of thing. So first time it's been in the States. Obviously had great success at Queen's Club in London the past few years, and we moved to a new venue now, one which we're familiar with the North American Open. But this tournament always has a great feel, great format. You get a second chance if you don't get a win in every night, which helps. And Yeah, it's but interesting that the top 4 players currently in the world have made the semi-finals. So it shows that those standings, show and count for something. It'd be great to add this trophy to the trophy cabinet. I keep having a running joke with PSA that me and Shabana should share it. The year that the wind caused havoc at Queen's, but I don't think they're listening to me. I'll keep chipping away and see if I can work on them on that one. But yeah, in the meantime, got a chance this year. One of 4 players left in, and what will be. I'll give it my all on the court. Not hit top gear probably yet. I think it's fair to say this week. So hopefully I've got a good performance or 2 left in me. Yeah, Mohamed, he's a top player now. I think he's the youngest player by far in the top 20, and he's really knocking on the door of the top 3 now. He's won his first World Series event in Qatar. As I mentioned, similar conditions here, dead court, which seems to suit him. So I'll certainly have my work cut out tonight. And he's got a lot of belief, a lot of hunger, and if I can match that first and foremost, and hopefully my experience can come to the fore.
Well, Matthew is at world number 1. He's going to be 34 in a couple of months. He's had 101 minutes on court. He also won that Swedish Open back in February, losing out to Ramy Ashour in the Windy City Open last week after having a bit of a back spasm. Well, his back is going to have to be in seriously strong order because it will be ripped around the court by Mohamed Elshorbagy. Here are the last 5 meetings, and very importantly, that Qatar Classic in October. Elshorbagy won 3-2. Matthew with a bit more of a dominance, but it's always the last match that's the most important. So Elshorbagy certainly flashes, got the confidence, he knows he can beat Matthew, and he's one of those players that, as you pointed out in the introduction to the programme, it's a cold court, he's a heavy hitter, he's very, very positive, and he will go for Nick Matthews' jugular.
He certainly will, Joey, and it's going to be interesting to see how Nick Matthew combats the conditions of this very cold venue. Obviously, Nick Matthew normally liking to elongate the rallies early on, really feel his opponent out and draw his opponent further back in the court so he can get up the court and volley and be very positive. And it'll be interesting to see how he goes about that, because we certainly know that Elshorbagy is going to be taking his chances and playing with a lot of variety in his shot selection, plenty of angles, plenty of changes in pace, and lots of hard hitting.
Well, the central referee from South Africa, Mike Collins. Elshorbagy with the long sleeves. It's actually not a complete t-shirt underneath. I don't know if you have them as well, Flash, but they're just literally over the arms.
Yeah, just compression sleeves for the arms, keeping his biceps and triceps and forearms warm in these chilly conditions.
And Matthew just taking on a little bit of extra carbohydrate gel and some water.
It is quite an interesting idea with the sleeves, Joey, because obviously keeping the body temperature warm in these conditions is important, but with a full compression shirt, it would have a bit of restriction around the shoulders and things, while with the sleeves, obviously doesn't affect his chest or shoulder movement, but he still keeps a bit of warmth on the uncovered arm area.
This certainly is the calm before the storm.
The second semi-final of the PSA World Series Squash Finals. Mohamed Elshorbagy.
Are you confident about your prediction here? There's Jonathan
best
Power.
Of 5 games. Level.
Looking eager to anticipate this. He's quite a big fan of Elshorbagy.
One love. Stroke to Matthew, hand out, 1-all. Yes, lit, 1-all. Down, 2-1.
Do you think there'll be quite a lot of decisions amongst these two, a lot of lid balls and stuff?
No, I think it'll be quite free-flowing, Joey. I think, especially with the conditions, it's quite... Both players are going to be trying to establish themselves further forward on the tee, and I think that'll allow there to be quite free-flowing lines of play. I think it's more in the hot conditions where you see the ball pinging around more, where the lets become.
Though. We've had quite a few already, Flash. I mean, you're getting into this, and rightly so, at 2-1 in the first game, but we've had quite a few lets. There's not really any type of flow to the game yet.
Yes, lit, 2-1.
We're seeing the early goings here, Joey. Matthew looking to straighten the ball along the side walls, and we've seen Elshorbagy with some tremendous hitting, experimenting with the angles and firing the ball in. He's not really feathering it in, taking it all the way up the court. He's putting it in with quite a lot of pace, so it's coming back towards the tee line, but it still has such a steep angle on it that it's dying quite short.
Yeah.
Well, that's a rapid exchange in the front corner.
3-1.
Elshorbagy possibly trying to be a little bit too creative there from a very straight angle, trying to flick the ball cross court.
Yeah. And now 2-3.
This is unbelievable court coverage from Elshorbagy. He showed this all tournament. Not always the most graceful, but very powerful.
Yes, lit. 2-3.
When we see just how hard that rally is by the heaving of Matthew's chest there while he questions the proceedings from the referee. Quite a marvelous job there from Elshorbagy, though, to get back into this rally. He was up against the kosh there for quite a bit of time, and he managed to salvage a let from it.
Yeah, he did do tremendously well, kept hustling with his pickups.
Yes, lit. 2-3.
Well, that was an intentional shot there from Elshorbagy, hitting the ball down the middle. You see it a lot from the front of the court, but Elshorbagy's got the power to really make a difference at Nick Matthew from the back of the court. He knows how good Matthew is across the tee line, so it's just a kind of very awkward ball to take when it's at your body and you're committing over to the side.
Well, and it brings up an interesting point, Joe. It's an interesting strategy to employ, especially against Matthew, because we all know how Matthew's trying to move forward in the court and really hunt the volley. And Nick Matthews' vision when he's looking at the squash ball really is forward towards the front wall. So by Elshorbagy playing such a shot up the middle, it almost doesn't come into Matthews' field of vision the same way he's used to, and causes problems like we saw there. Well, this is marvelous from Matthew, really working Elshorbagy systematically around the court.
5-3.
And I think the amazing thing here is with the weight of shot Matthew was using, Elshorbagy just barely managing to get it back, but it actually works out in Matthew's favor because he puts so much more mileage in the Egyptian's legs.
Yeah, well, they're not exactly efficient movements, and he will feel it, particularly if you hit the 40, 45, 50-minute mark on this very cold, severe glass court. It really rips into the muscles, and these guys have been able to play just best of threes in the group stage.
5-3.
So many let balls. See it here, that's very loose. That's got to be a stroke. I think that's a stroke.
Yeah, my gut feel on seeing it in real time was that it was going to be a stroke. Obviously, Matthew wanting to save that appeal, though, for later in the game when it could be a little bit more valuable.
No let. 6-3.
Well, finally there's a no-let scenario. So Elshorbagy trying to take a little moment to refocus himself. Matthew with a mini lead at 6-3 in this first game.
It's really thunderous hitting from Elshorbagy on that forehand.
It is thunderous, but you can hear Elshorbagy saying about his length, because it's not going to the back of the court. It's thunderous, but it's all around the middle of the court, and he's got away with murder there, really. What a freebie from Matthew. He's got to get the ball in the back corners. He's no good hitting around the middle of the court. Somebody like Matthew is just going to be there all day long. Oh, that is beautiful. That was played quite wonderfully by Matthew. Lovely open racket face, chipping the ball into the sidewall, catching Elshorbagy very flat-footed. It's not really a shot that Matthew plays that often from that position in the court, but what a time to play it. Clever play.
Well, that's a great little bit of improvisation from Elshorbagy. The ball shooting out at an awkward angle, and Elshorbagy playing it almost top spin, a bit of side spin. There's a bit of all kinds of spin on that, and it died very short, Joey.
Well, probably because of all the spin you described, which is quite a lot. Oh, that is brilliant width. A very skillful shot. This
8-5.
when you're this close to the front wall. You've got to get that shot right, otherwise you can really stitch yourself up. Matthew getting it inch perfect, re-establishing his lead. 8-5. Got to be a stroke.
Yes, let's. 8-5.
Well, he said hit it. I'm sure he said hit it. That's what I heard.
Right side.
Might have been something else, but I just thought he was going to absolutely muller him on the head there. Anyway, let ball. But what the referees are advocating, which is right, is to play the ball, keep it free flowing. 8-5. Matthew always wants to really look to play the ball. It's within his interest to keep the rallies going. Flash.
It certainly is, and I think that was the frustration there, was he saw an opportunity where he could have delivered more pressure and he opted not to. Some very severe play. Started out with a boast there from Elshorbagy, and then a phenomenal straight drop.
Well, that boast was a complete gut ripper.
6-8.
And then Elshorbagy using those very soft hands. So he's not letting Matthew get away quite yet as we hit the very important stage of this first. 6-8. Can he close that lead down, Flash?
Well, I think he has his work cut out for him, because Matthew seems very solid here tonight. But he certainly is within striking distance. That's clever improvisation from Elshorbagy, using the reverse boast. Caught Matthew off guard, and we see the quite cheap error from Matthew.
It wasn't the best of reverse boasts. It's a shot he does love to play. Matthew, who's so precise in those areas of the court, just clipping the top of the tin. So the danger starting to come now. Well, we've got a review now. Take us through this one.
The ball wasn't even tight. It wasn't even
Well,
tight.
Elshorbagy playing quite a loose cross-court width, and Nick Matthew jumping on it very early. I think the referee basically giving the no-let because of how early Matthew took the ball, but I think what wasn't really taken into consideration was just the looseness of Matthew's shot, and I think this will be overturned pretty quickly, because Nick Matthews shot quite substantially loose and coming right back to that service line. Well, we see the decisions upheld, Joey.
Decision to no let. Elshorbagy has no video reviews remaining. Handouts, 9-7.
So the no let upheld. Matthew 9-7. Very important scenario there. Tempos you'd expect as we look to close out this first game, going up tremendously. Both players looking to hit with great power to the back of the court, trying to use the momentum to get up to the tee line and hunt that next ball.
Well, I think from Nick Matthews' point of view, this first game has really gone swimmingly well. He's put a lot of work in the legs of Elshorbagy. It has quite a long duration, which is one of the things he looks for. And near the end of this business end of the game, he has a 2-point cushion, which is very important just for the confidence side of things.
Yes, let. 9-7.
There's no way he can hit that except the
Can you
ball.
review, please, Mr.
Just the
Matthew,
ball.
on the yes, let decision?
If it comes off the back wall, it can still be a stroke.
Yeah, but
Well, this is an interesting one that Nick Matthews reviewing. I kind of felt this was quite a simple lad. I understand what Nick's saying about Elshorbagy moving back into the path of the ball, but by the time Elshorbagy started to move in, after Nick's asked for the let, so I don't really see this decision changing. Well, and it stays as a let, Joey, so the status quo maintained.
Decision upheld. Final decision, yes, let. No more, Mr. Matthew has no more reviews remaining.
Play the ball next time.
9-7 from the right.
Well, it's always worrying signs when Mohammed Elshorbagy's hair starts to go a bit AWOL. It certainly frees him up. I don't know what it is psychologically, but he becomes very instinctual after that wonderful head of hair starts to fly away.
Well,
And he is absolutely caning it. And there we go. Elshorbagy is rumbled. He's irritable in the best possible sense. And it's aiding his game, particularly in that last rally. Very dynamic. That shot is brilliant. He makes it look so easy from a full swing. That takes a lot of dexterity and touch in the hand. 8-9.
Well, that is a marvelous change of direction from Nick Matthew. Lunging in almost awkwardly. He got an amazing amount of length on the lunge, though, and completely redirecting the ball.
But he actually improvised supremely well. He was out of his normal range of movement there. 2 game balls for the Wolf. Good squeeze from Elshorbagy.
9-10, game ball.
Not letting Matthew have it all his own way here, Flash.
No, and Elshorbagy with a brilliant opportunity here to send this game into a tie-break situation. He's done a marvelous job for most of this first game, Elshorbagy, in terms of weathering the storm Matthew's thrown at him. Matthew's been playing at quite a ferocious pace, been quite far up the tee as we'd expect. Elshorbagy's done a lovely job in terms of mixing attacks and staying in this game.
Thank you. 11-9. Game to Matthew. Matthew leads 1 game to love.
So a very tense, highly competitive first game. Matthew in just under 20 minutes, 19 minutes, takes the first 11-9. He leads 1 game to love.
Our second semi-final here at the 2013 World Series Finals started out with ferocious hitting. Mohammed Elshorbagy absolutely thundering the ball along the forehand side wall, and Nick Matthew pushing up the court as we would expect him to do, and volley absolutely everything. Matthew managed to climb out to the early lead and maintained the coveted 2-point cushion for much of that first game, but Elshorbagy did a very good job of absorbing all the pressure from Matthew and attacking with plenty of variety, but ultimately Matthew did what was necessary and managed to claim the first.
Well, Mohammed Elshorbagy with those very funny sleeves that help keep his arms warm in these Arctic conditions here in Richmond, Virginia. Don't let those ferns, that greenery, fool you. It's not tropical here, far from it. there. Mick Matthew getting a fresh change of shirt. I'm sure Elshorbagy would have been briefed by his coach, Jonah Barrington, earlier today on his game plan for Nick Matthew. Not bad words of advice to have from afar from Mr. Barrington.
No, certainly a very motivational man, and he certainly would have been able to provide Elshorbagy with some brilliant gems to hold on to when he's up against Akash in this match. And those little gems are the kind of things that can make a difference at this level. They can help a player have that extra little focus when he's fighting for his life on court, when he's in oxygen debt and really struggling to think clearly, and he has just a little catchphrase or a little game plan to wrap his head around mentally and allow him to push forward in the match.
Well, Chris, what do you think we are to expect in the early stage of this second game? Matthew loves that long first game duration, and I have to say 19 minutes in these conditions is very long. Very, very long.
Well, it certainly is, Joey. I mean, these conditions are very difficult to play and extremely cold. I mean, we had a practice match earlier, and I think we managed to play a full match in under 19 minutes.
Well, maybe not completely true, but it was quite quick in some respects. A few more people have kind of turned up in the crowd, but it's still quite sparse. Some very courageous people actually watching without a coat or long sleeves on. Well, Elshorbagy's taken his sleeves off, so this could be dangerous. Not just for Nick Matthew.
I think the thing here at the start of this second game that's the real question is, how is Elshorbagy going to break Nick Matthew's rhythm? In that first game, Nick Matthew really moving very rhythmically, hitting in a very rhythmic manner. And Elshorbagy never really drew him out into any rallies where there was real extreme movement and extreme discomfort for the Englishman. So the question is, how will Elshorbagy do that? Will he do that through changes in his hitting, more variety in the paces, or will he do it through his shot selection, throwing in variety of angles and attacks mixed in with his length? But that was a lovely dying length there, absolutely inch-perfect length, and a great start from the Egyptian. Joey, Elshorbagy's trying to really increase his speed off the tee. I just noticing his movements into the back corners. He seems a lot more alert in his movement, in his first step off the tee area.
That was very clever, though, as well. Started to really take the pace off the ball and use a lot more height, Elshorbagy, a lot more height. He's got the wingspan across the tee line and the artillery to attack Matthew, so just slightly and subtly adapting his tactics here. He's not trying to hit the ball at 100 miles an hour consistently. He's using height to get it to the back of the court and take away the volley range of Matthew. There goes the height, good chip down that sidewall. This is what Elshorbagy is very good at doing, adapting his game quickly. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. He does love that shot. He loves that shot. He actually plays that shot better than a normal drop shot. Thank you very much. This was quality. Nicely done. He does actually play it. I've not seen him. When he does drop drive, he should do that all the time. You have to change his shorts, though.
And out 1-3.
I think the crowd here still trying to work out what actually happened. And that will probably go on for the rest of the night.
Yes, let's. Appeal on the output test. All is good?
On the line, ref.
Yeah, it's under the line. 1-3.
Well, a heated argument from Matthew and the referee. It was on the line, it was under the line, it was on the line, it was under the line. Wow.
And out. 4-1.
Well, it's been a marvelous start to the second game from Elshorbagy. He's really taken the initiative and attacked Matthew in that front backhand corner wonderfully.
Out. 5-1. And out 2-5. And out 6-2. Stroke to Matthew, and out 3-6.
Well, Matthew trying to claw his way back into the second game. Elshorbagy has just had so much initiative here. Matthew's been caught slightly out. Well, and that's a very surprising error from Nick Matthew. He had great variety early on in that rally and then ended it with that thunderous tin. Certainly not something we expect from the world champion.
No, not in the bottom of the tin there. And Elshorbagy starting to really look to express himself on there with a slightly dangerous hunger.
Yes, led 7-3.
Again, quite a few let ball scenarios, traffic problems, even on this very cool glass court. More strength there from Elshorbagy. Clever boast from Matthew. Fading away from Elshorbagy all the time. The Egyptian trying to roll the racket head over here. But with the ball falling so low, hitting the top of the tin. So a brief break in the play for floor to be made safe. Elshorbagy looking quite thankful for the mini rest as well. Well, Matthew just directing it all, saying it's absolutely fine now. And nearly being stabbed in the stomach by the slightly annoyed court cleaner who wanted to carry on for hours on end. Well, he's so annoyed, he's actually gone off and oh, he comes back again. Everyone needs to watch out, health and safety. Poke one of the players in the eye, that would be an absolute shocker, Flash.
Yeah, no, that would be a disaster to have an injury take place while the court's being cleaned.
There we go. There you go. No, oh, he's slightly apologised, but he said, I'll come back and get a stronger mop. This is quite strange now. It's like they're in sync. It's like synchronised mopping. I think that's fine now. I think they've done pretty much all the squash courts here at Westwood. There we go. All right, chaps, let the guys play now. Thank you very much.
Serving 4-7.
Oh, interestingly, one of the rogue moppers was actually doing it with a wet towel, Flash. He obviously doesn't do very much cleaning at home, does he?
Yeah, it's probably not ideal to be using a wet towel on top of the sweat on the court.
Not really, particularly when it's this cold and it can turn to ice. So Matthew serving at 4-7.
Well, it'll be interesting to see off that little break because it was quite prolonged for the middle of the game, Joey, to see if either of these players takes a bit of initiative. Certainly they had plenty of time to recoup their energy levels, so there could be some quite frantic rallies coming up.
Yes, let. 4-7.
Well, Nick Matthew asking for a review here. I'm a little bit surprised about that, Joey. I thought that was just quite a steady lat, but obviously Matthew feeling that Elshorbagy was in the way of his swing, wanting to play that, wanting to take the ball early. Well, actually, he might have had a point there, Nick Matthew.
Well, I think that's a stroke. I think this is a stroke. We look at it again. It's right. I mean, that's a massive stroke. That is. That's a good decision by the fourth official, and a good use of the review by Matthew. Well, they've had plenty of respite, Flash, with that court attendance, then the video review. So both these players, I'm sure, will get straight into a pretty high tempo, particularly Elshorbagy. Here comes the sprint. Well, look at this pace. Sorry.
Well, the pace is frantic, Joey, but I feel even so that these, well, that is
look at that.
Amazing. That is amazing. And we see the passion from Elshorbagy.
He said, it's usually yalla in Arabic means come on, but he said wallah, I think. As in Adrian Waller.
See Matthew here trying to steady it out, use some slower balls along the side wall and height on the front wall to just slow the onslaught of Elshorbagy. Well,
that was a horrendous slip. Oh, he's slipping all over the place. Luckily, Elshorbagy has not hurt himself. That was a nasty slip, Flash.
No, it sure was. And well, and the problem with the floor on this court, Joey, is the sweat
Well,
pools on top of it.
It doesn't clear off it at all. And that luckily for him, he's still very young and obviously strong and has got massive feet. He's got the biggest feet on the PSA World Tour. He needed them there, big plates, and then he mini slipped again.
Well, and I think the lucky thing when
you can see.
Well, we see the sweat there, but I think the lucky thing there when Elshorbagy slipped was as he was slipping, he let his body fall to the floor quite quickly, and he didn't try and maintain the lunge, which would have put extra strain on the muscles and could have resulted in a tear, possibly.
You've had that before, haven't you?
Yeah, I tore my hamstring once in Ecuador on a very similar situation to that. Well, an interesting tactic from Matthew, sending Elshorbagy into that same corner that he slipped in almost immediately, possibly trying to play a little bit of a psychological warfare there with the Egyptian. Because it should be noted, when you do slip like that, when you slide on sweat across the floor, it is quite a frightening feeling for an athlete because you really lose control of your body. And the chance of injury is actually very extreme. And as an athlete, it's a very worrying feeling because you've just completely lost control and you're basically, you know, leaving your safety and you know, in the hands of the gods and hoping it works for the best.
So what are you trying to say in short there, Flash? Or maybe we should come back.
Well, in short, it's just carnage. It's just carnage, really.
Okay, thanks for the confusion there, mate. We're into the business end of this second, and it is crucial for all that could be a stroke.
It's the same one. Exactly the same one.
Well, Matthew's reviewing this. First thought, I thought it was a stroke. Let's have a look again. This is the wonderful opportunity here with the system we have with the fourth official to be able to look at this in a couple of different angles. Ooh. What do you think, Flush?
Well, I think it's going to be a stroke. I know the ball's coming across Elshorbagy's body, but at the moment when Elshorbagy would have played it, he certainly would have hit Matthew.
Well, it's been overturned. So Matthew is nailing these video reviews.
Worst decision I have seen. The worst.
And Elshorbagy making it pretty clear what he thinks about that one.
Decision to be made, Elshorbagy. Yes, let. 6-8.
He needs to regroup massively here because Nick Matthew is hot on his heels at 6-8, given a bit of a lifeline.
Yeah, it's a tricky decision, Joey, because the ball coming across into the center of the court.
Well, he read the high forehand drop from Elshorbagy. This is ridiculous strength. Oh, there it is. Massive scream from Elshorbagy. Completely ripped that cross-court nick into the corner there. Smashing it, full of testosterone. It's good to see. 9-6.
Well, there's been an incredible intensity about Elshorbagy here in the second game.
Well, Matthew will be questioning that ball very close to the out-of-court line, Flash.
Absolutely, Matthew won't let that one slip by him. Feels like a more positive rally from Matthew. He seems to have pushed up the court and seems more comfortable in that central tee position.
Yes, let. 7-9. Review. Review, please. Mr. Elshorbagy on the yes, let decision.
The ball at the back, at the back.
Well, he feels the ball was far too in the back here. It's a loose ball from Matthew.
It's tight at the back. Please, ref, see it. It's so easy to see it.
Well, the point is, though, Joey, hasn't Elshorbagy already used his review?
That's what I thought he had done.
Yes, let. Decision is held.
I actually thought he had used his review.
So, I mean, I think he's gotten away with one there, Elshorbagy.
Come on.
I can talk if I want. I don't think you should tell me if I should talk or not.
Decision's been
I
made.
do what I want. If someone should stop me, it's there, not you. I'm sorry.
Elshorbagy, the decision's been made. Elshorbagy has no more video reviews available.
What's the score?
7-9. Matthew serving from the right.
Okay, sorry.
Well, both players talking to each other about it because Matthew trying to make the point.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Slightly
Play
forced
on,
smile there.
7-9.
Couldn't have been more forced. The bizarre mental side of the top game. Always good friends. (7-9) Matthew. Things getting very tense here.
There's no need for that block. He's got the ball in the middle. Why does he need to block?
Well, Nick Matthew complaining about Elshorbagy's positioning around the middle, Elshorbagy taking plenty of space there. You know, seeing it from the top, though, it doesn't really look as if Elshorbagy took that much space.
I'm not going to say anything the rest of the match, okay? I know he's going to keep doing that. Actually, in the rules, that's a stroke to me. If you deliberately block, just for your, just to say, you were looking at that thinking let or no let. It's actually potentially a stroke if you deliberately don't clear the ball.
10-7. Game ball.
Well, Matthew, pretty convinced that he used his body. I don't think he did a huge amount there. You're looking at the right leg. I think it's just the way he hit it aggressively, shaped himself like he possibly might block.
Well, and I think that most of the contact was on Elshorbagy's forward motion, which was just momentum from hitting the ball with such force.
Sure. 3 game balls here for Elshorbagy to level it up. He squeezed it. Elshorbagy has managed to hold on to this second game. (46 minutes). A 23-minute second game. Astonishing, really, in duration for the scoreline. Elshorbagy takes it 11-7. He equals things up here at 1 game all.
Well, Elshorbagy knew he had to answer back in the second game, and he sure did, coming out, playing at an absolutely blazing pace, thundering the ball around the court with that very, very hard hitting. He played some lovely shots, great variety into the front corners, really mixed the paces and the attacks, and left Matthew with very few answers of what to do. We saw near the end of the game, Elshorbagy becoming very animated, very positive in his body language, and Matthew trying to answer back, trying to contain, but ultimately Elshorbagy takes the game and levels the match.
Well, as you'd expect with these two very physical players, Flash, it's getting heated. There's a few exchanges going on, a lot going on with the referees. Elshorbagy's pumped up. He believes he could beat Nick Matthew. He did it in Qatar back in October. He's full of energy. He's spoken to his coach earlier today, Jonah Barrington, to get some extra bit of advice and inspiration, and he's showing it now. We've got a real match on our hands, Flash Gordon.
We sure do, Joey, and I think this is where the fireworks are going to begin. Nick Matthew took the first game, pretty sensible first game. Elshorbagy answered back in the second. Elshorbagy's starting to get very pumped up and animated, like you say, and now it really is a best of 3 games, all you can play for. And the question is, here at the third, who is going to take the initiative and take control of this semi-final match?
Do you think winning this third game, whoever wins this third game is going to win the match? Are you quite happy to make that call, as your predictions have been pretty much all over the shop?
Yeah, I think that's a fair enough call. Whoever wins this third game could take the match, because
15 seconds.
I think this could really be the pivotal seesaw point of the match. The first 2 games, very even. Nick Matthew taking the first, Elshorbagy taking the second. And I think that this third game could really determine the momentum.
Games are 1-all. Elshorbagy to serve. Love all. And up.
Well, that's a slightly surprising error from Elshorbagy, trying to play the boast into the side wall, and the ball just losing all its pace.
And out, 1-all.
Well, a disappointing error there from Matthew. He'd worked Elshorbagy marvelously leading up to it. He had him completely out of position. We see him pointing to the back corner there. Probably would have rather to chose the simpler shot, pumping the ball straight down the line. It certainly would have been safer and would have delivered plenty of pressure onto Elshorbagy.
Yes, late. 1-all. Yes, late. 1-all.
Well, Matthew really utilising all 4 corners intelligently here. Taking the pace off the ball, and there's a bit of emotion from Matthew. You don't usually see him outwardly shout, but he did on that inch-perfect length. He didn't hit it at 100 miles an hour. He managed to get really a lot of cut on the ball, dying in the back corners. And as this ball, as we say probably a billion times on Squash TV, starts to really soften, it gets even harder to get it to the back of the court here. Cannot reiterate how cold it is. There is a reason why Flash Gordon's nose is unbelievably red.
And out. 2-all. Done. 3-2.
Well, some long probing rallies here at the start of the third. Some incredible retrieving from Matthew, and Elshorbagy will be very upset with himself there. He had Matthew absolutely all over the place. Had what appeared to be quite an easy winner and instead planted it squarely in the tin.
And there's an unforced error this time from Matthew.
4-3.
Both players starting to find it mentally quite tough with the intensity. The intensity of this match has been so raw.
And it should be noted that intensity is even more magnified because of these cold conditions. The areas of the court that these players are having to go into is so extreme. It really is extremely taxing on these bodies. Well, Elshorbagy's starting to get really fired up. He's really got Matthew against the kosh here.
Yeah, as it's always wonderful when your opponent slightly guesses from the front of the court, and that's what Matthew did. Ramir Shaw, who's already in the final tomorrow, will be loving seeing these guys taking massive chunks out of each other. His body getting a nice rest.
Yes, led.
No left! No left.
5-3.
Well,
Yes,
this is
5-3.
this is a bit wonky. Why would that be a no let?
Play the ball.
3 words. It was a stroke. 4 words and 4.
Well, I don't understand why Elshorbagy doesn't review it. It really is just a simple stroke, to be honest. You know, I understand that he could be trying to save that, you know, coveted video review for later on in the game for a more important decision, but that seemed really straightforward, to be honest.
Yes, led. 5-3.
And you feel like all these stoppages and different kind of decisions and chatting with the referee is starting to slightly frustrate Matthew. He's not really enjoying the breaks in play. Well, that is just fantastic attacking from Elshorbagy. And we really see Elshorbagy's body language picking up. He's shouting at himself, pumping the fist.
I love it. I think it's wonderful to see a bit of mojo going on.
Well, it's very much like the session you did in the gym earlier today, Joey.
Well, yeah, just trying to get all the angst down. Oh, that's so well read. Elshorbagy is on a huge wave at the moment. Absolutely all over Matthew. 7-3. It's like he's knocking Matthew gradually out. And I don't mean out of the tournament, I mean just
8-3.
like two boxers.
Well, and you get the feeling that Matthew's starting to run out of ideas. He has a game plan that is making a dent in Elshorbagy, and he's putting tremendous pressure on the Egyptian, but the Egyptian seems to be winning all the points, and you just feel Matthew starting to cut balls finer and finer, and errors are starting to creep in at times.
Hand out 4-8.
Well, we have all sorts of quotes from so many greats of the game, and Jonah Barrington originally calling squash physical chess, and then Paul Johnson slightly changing it, not saying he's a great, but he's a great on SQUASHTV, calling it chess on legs. And then we also have a quote from Jonah Barrington, squash is boxing with rackets, and that's pretty much what's going on here, Flash.
No, it certainly is. These are two heavyweights just standing in the middle of the ring or the middle of the court, punching each other in the face and seeing who drops first.
Well, as Matthew gets that point, we start to move over the hour mark.
Well, and the thing Nick Matthews is doing here, he's doing just enough to stay in touch with Elshorbagy. Elshorbagy obviously with that few point cushion, but Matthews still within striking distance.
Hand out. 9-5.
Well, he's
10-5.
completely and utterly smashing it around now, finding those back corners. Matthew really trying to keep his temper under wraps. 5 game balls for Elshorbagy to take a 2-1 lead. Ow.
Hand out.
I can't believe he got up from that.
Please.
Yeah, that really didn't look pleasant at all.
No, it was a brilliant volley drop. And here, oh, that could have been nasty.
Did quite lucky to drop the racket so he didn't get the racket
I know.
jamming against his leg, because that can
really hurt.
Yeah, that can be quite damaging.
To impale yourself on the racket. So there's no marks on his knees there. I've done that a few times.
Thank you.
But it's whacked me in the knee or the shin as you come in, and then yeah, you just, oh, could have easily have gone anywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing he didn't skin his knees either, you know, which with a blood injury, with the kind of momentum he's got, is not something that he would want to have happen.
Absolutely. Well, he's got away with it here, Elshorbagy. Still 4 game balls for the young Egyptian. And that is tight. So Elshorbagy playing quite brilliantly. His best squash so far in this tournament. And what a time to start to utilize it. 61 minutes so far, a 12-minute third game. Elshorbagy hits his mark, taking it 11-6. He leads 2 games to 1.
It was a marvelous third game from Egypt's Mohamed Elshorbagy. He came out motivated, he came out with the bit between his teeth, and he really attacked Nick Matthew. He played with a tremendous pace, a tremendous intensity, and never really gave Nick Matthew any space to hit anything. Elshorbagy pushed up the court, volleyed, counterpunched, and attacked with great variety. Nick Matthew, as the game went on, became more and more frustrated. And the question here going into the fourth, is Nick Matthew going to have an answer?
Well, there's Elshorbagy just trying to keep everything all in focus. He's so full of adrenaline, pumped up, outwardly really screaming and shouting. His eyes are wider than I've ever seen them. He is so up for this, and that's the danger when somebody like this has got a sniff. He knows that he could beat Matthew. He did it in the Qatar Classic after Matthew won that World Championship. And he's in a very good position at the moment at 2-1, but this match is far from over because you won't get a more tenacious, stubborn character like Nick Matthew. Always has to have the last say, and he'll certainly be wanting that in this match.
15 seconds.
But I mean, when you think about it, he's got to try to control Elshorbagy, which is so hard when you've got somebody pushing up the court like Elshorbagy, forcing the pace continually. But then the other side of the coin with Elshorbagy is that he also can change the pace quite quickly. He doesn't always have a rhythm, so he does like to play in a fast, dominant pace, but then suddenly he can start chipping the ball around and doing some quirky shots, so he can disturb the rhythm. Matthew is certainly more of a rhythm player, Flush.
No, absolutely, Joey, and I think the thing here that Nick Matthew needs to find is he needs to find his quality of length, because with the variety Shorbagy likes to play with, one of the things that's enabling them to play with that variety is Nick Matthews' balls being slightly short and popping out around the middle of the court, allowing Shorbagy plenty of options to use variety. So it will be quite interesting to see what kind of strategy Nick Matthew employs here in this fourth game to try and level this match. Is he going to hit the ball harder to get it to the back, or is he going to raise it on the front wall, use more height so it carries deeper in the court?
Ready to serve. Level. One love.
Well, an error there from Shorbagy, but we see his movement into the front corner is just so powerful here at the start of this fourth game. He really is pumped up for this semifinal. That's clever play, Joey.
Well, it really is. He's shown the straight drop time and time again, and that's the first time he's played the flick and given Elshorbagy a massive bit of deception there. So there's a reason why Matthew's won so many major titles and is at world #1 currently. He's in his element here, really, I have to say it. There's a reason why he's called the Wolf, and he is on that tee line, pressing and pressing and pressing. Oh, that's well played, though. And this is the danger again. Elshorbagy not letting Matthew build a quick lead. Again, Matthew looking for that cross-court guess. Good intelligent play from the Egyptian, going straight down the line, Flush.
No, he's been very dominant in that backhand front corner, Shorbagy. I mean, he's attacked it wonderfully, but also in terms of counter-punching Matthew's attacks in there, it's been really something special. He's gotten in those front corners very quickly, which is very important when you're playing on a court as dead as this one is. So Matthew's starting to look slightly out of sorts here. It's interesting, Joey, because you wouldn't really say that Matthew's done much wrong in this semi-final. It's just Shorbagy's been pretty tremendous so far.
He has. I mean, he's threatened top quality squash the whole tournament, Elshorbagy, beating Ramy Ashour in the first opener, and then slightly messing up, well, majorly messing up against Tarek Momen. He was dominating Tarek Momen. He got a little bit, I wouldn't say cocky, but he got a bit jokey and complacent and ended up losing that epic battle. Redeemed himself against Woolstrop, and he is starting to really flourish in this semi-final with Matthew. Was tight. It's good work here. Still he stays in the rally. Matthew is keeping that ball so close to the sidewall, but Elshorbagy
Stroke to Matthew. Hand out 3-all.
Well, I don't think this has passed him. See it here. Comes. No. What do you think?
I think it's a steady stroke.
Yeah.
I think Elshorbagy's maybe just getting a little bit too much adrenaline at the minute.
Oh goodness me! Yeah, he would. Yeah, I think he would have absolutely. Yeah, I won't say it. Meep.
Yes, led. 3-all. Yes, led. 3-all.
Well, just getting slightly scrappy around the middle, Joey. The hitting is quite severe, but maybe the accuracy leaving a little bit to be desired. It's completely understandable, though. These two have been working incredibly hard for well over an hour now.
Well, that's exceptional hitting from Matthew. Strong, strong presence across the middle. Inch perfect, second bounce into that back wall, Nick.
Well, and I think this is the area Elshorbagy needs to be careful, because he was so pumped up earlier. He needs to be careful that there isn't a dip in the energy level, because Nick Matthew is going to continue to play at this pace and this intensity for quite a bit of time.
Yes, led. 4-3 on the left. Left side. To Matthew, 5-3.
Well, Matthew starting to reel Elshorbagy in, and you can see the Englishman growing in confidence. He's moving Elshorbagy around the court systematically, and he's starting to pay dividends. Ooh.
6-3.
And we see Elshorbagy very displeased with that error. Poor error there from Elshorbagy. It was a relatively tight shot from Matthew and a very ambitious volley drop played by the Egyptian that just never materialized.
Well, Well, Matthew is doing exactly what Elshorbagy did to the Englishman in the third game. And I think you touched upon a very important point about the whole adrenaline consumption. You only have so much in the tank, and Elshorbagy was showing so much of that.
And out 4-7.
That the body cannot, whatever goes up must come down, Flash, basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Elshorbagy was really going on all cylinders in that second and third game, and he was very pumped up, really very high. And I think here he's just battling a little bit to maintain that level of intensity, especially considering Matthew is matching his pace, and if not, upping it a little bit.
No leads.
It doesn't need to react like
And
that.
out. You wouldn't have got that.
It doesn't need to act like that.
I didn't.
8-4.
I just think it's really funny when he does that. That's all.
8-4.
I'm not trying to get in trouble, I just tripped.
Yeah, wow.
Don't be a dick about it, I just tripped.
Don't be sorry like what?
I said don't be silly about it, I just
Is it,
tripped.
Yeah,
gentlemen, please stop the discussion and play on.
He's accusing me of something and I didn't say anything, I just tripped.
8-4.
I think Elshorbagy probably talking about the reaction of Matthew, possibly with that slight push.
I have a feeling Matthew just went down a little bit too easy, but Matthew answering back that he just stumbled.
Down.
And there's the unforced error.
9-4.
So Matthew, 9-4. This is going into a fifth and final game, that's for sure.
Well, at least I potentially got the 5-game part of my prediction right, Joey.
You did.
It is a start for me.
It is. You've got to start somewhere, Flush. Clever shot, brilliant shot. This could be lights out.
Down.
It is, because it hit the tin.
10-4 game ball.
So Matthew with 6 game balls.
Eleven-4 game. to
Matthew taking
and
the
2
fourth
all.
game quite comfortably and leveling this match.
"75 minutes in this second semi-final. Matthew responds as you would expect from a world number 1, taking the fourth. 11-4. It's now 2 games all.
Well, Nick Matthew came roaring back there in that fourth game, pushing up the court, taking the initiative with his hitting, volleying the ball ferociously, and really moving Elshorbagy around the court, putting tremendous pressure on the Egyptian. Elshorbagy, you felt as if he came off the surge he had in the second and third games. His energy level seemed to dip, and Nick Matthew fully recognized this and put more and more pressure under the young Egyptian. So here we have it, a fifth and final game, all to play for.
Well, all the fans around the world after the first semi-final being quite brilliant squash from Ramy Ashour, but it was a 3-love. Now they've got an absolute battle on their hands. 2 all going into this fifth and final game. Well, Elshorbagy has got a few war wounds. He's flown all over the court, and you can see that must have been from the sidewall when he went in there and scraped his deltoid on the side wall of the glass. If he'd been wearing one of his recovery sleeves, he might not have come off as badly, but there you go. Food for thought there, Mr. Elshorbagy. But let's hope, from the purist point of view, that the Egyptian can get that adrenaline back up again. Matthew typically on court first, doing all sorts of
15 seconds.
movement exercises just to show Elshorbagy that he's still full of beans and energy. It's a tactic he does like to use with his opponents when the matches start to become real battles. Stay with us, Flash. As I've said it before, the crowd here being really spoilt by the quality of the squash.
Yes, no, it's been a marvelous night of semi-finals, Joey. In the first one, Remy Ashore showed just how talented he is, putting on a masterclass, dispatching Gregory Gaultier 3-love. And here we have a titanic battle on our hands. It's going to be extremely interesting to see what happens here in the 5th game. There's been a real ebb and flow with Matthew taking the first, then Elshorbagy getting really fired up and claiming the 2nd and 3rd games on pure adrenaline. And Matthew answering the call in the 4th, Elshorbagy's energy level dipping slightly, but here in the 5th, it really is all to play for. There's a spot in the final tomorrow, and it's going to be interesting to see how these players respond to that pressure.
Appeal on the ball was good. Yes, play late, please.
The ball was 100% good. That's at least. When he looks at you, don't make a decision.
I've had my side referees overruled. It's a yes late on the right, please.
That's now 2 that have been out, and you've got it wrong.
Well, certainly a controversial start here to the 5th.
Yes, late.
Really feel, Joey, that Elshorbagy's going to try and pump himself up here early on and try and increase his pace of hitting and just intensity of movement. Try and get an early lead on Nick Matthew.
Good improvisation. Oh, that is weird. That was a bit... What's he doing there? That was a bit ridiculous for Elshorbagy.
I can wait as long as I wanted to. As long as I didn't fake a swing and then I can always wait.
Reasons. If you're not happy, you can call for a video review.
I'm not happy with you. I'm not happy with the review thing. I'm not going to ask for a review in a 5th game at level.
Decisions, yes, late.
He's not going to ask for a review. Oh, actually, he caught Nick Matthew there.
Decisions are yes, late. Please play on, love all.
See it again. You can't do that. You can't do that with your swing. You can't go for a shot, fake it like that, and look for your opponent. That's could have been a bit dangerous for Matthew. It could have hit him in the teeth. This is tremendous recovery work from the Wolf. And there he forces the error. All credit, not bad for somebody that's close to 34 years of age there, Flash Gordon. 11 years difference in age gap, and Nick Matthew is moving around like a spring chuk-chuk.
Elshorbagy really trying to take the initiative with the pace of this 5th game. And I think the real question here, Joey, is if Elshorbagy will be able to maintain this pace, because obviously Matthew will be able to absorb this for quite a while.
The thing with Elshorbagy, and he has shown it in so many massive matches, he's got this ability to recover quite quickly.
Yes, lit, 1-1.
He can look fatigued, and then he comes again and he comes again, and it's just completely and utterly relentless.
Stroke to Elshorbagy, 2-1.
He's not looking to the front wall, ref, at all.
You prevented a swing, Matthew.
Sorry?
You prevented a swing. 2-1.
Well, here we see the replay of the stroke. Matthew feeling Elshorbagy looked for him, which, to be fair to Matthew, he actually did.
Video review.
No. The review of the replay was on. It's too late.
Actually, cancel the video review, please. You're quite right. Took too long to make the review, Mr. Matthew. 2-1 from the left.
He saw the replay there, you know.
Play on, please. 2-1.
You just called for a review. What's?
But you had just been watching the monitor.
Yeah, because I saw that your decision was awful.
Conduct warning, Mr. Matthew. 2-1.
Well, that's steeped upon Matthew, but he's certainly
Gentlemen,
looking
please
for
play
it.
on. No discussion.
If you think with your 10 years older, I'm going to teach that much respect. I'm not that kind of person.
Mr. Elshorbagy.
My respect to you is off court.
Conduct warning, Mr. Elshorbagy, for discussion.
No, but I mean this.
Play on, please.
Well, both players exchanging a few more words. I'm sure they'll be best friends tomorrow.
Yes, let. 2-1. Yes, let. 2-1. Video review.
This will be a very interesting review, Joey, because there was interference, but the shot quality from Nick Matthew was absolutely superb.
Yeah, it's a terrific shot. There's a quality shot here from Matthew. But he was quite close to it as well. I mean, it was tight. I mean, this is getting pretty scrappy.
Yes, let. Decision upheld.
But it shouldn't need to be.
Mr. Matthew has no video reviews remaining. 2-1.
A lot of discussions. We haven't had this much discussion between the players on court for a long time.
This is some tremendous retrieving from Elshorbagy.
Well, this is just raw strength, raw tenacity. It's going to be another let.
Yes,
I mean,
let.
he is flown around the court. The adrenaline's back with Elshorbagy. He's certainly rejuvenated his adrenaline.
It's just a block.
2-1.
Don't let the match descend into this. You're spoiling the game.
That wasn't a block, Mr. Matthew.
It's a good match.
He has a warning, right?
2-1.
So do you.
He's hitting and moving into Matthew there, I feel.
Stroke to Elshorbagy, 3-1.
Well, Nick Matthew certainly starting to look all over the place here, spraying that ball back at himself. with all the different kind of chats we've had going on here at the start of the fifth. We're only at 3-1, but it feels like we're much deeper into the game than we actually are.
It does, yeah, it does. I completely agree with you for once. Well, he's moving around, he's getting everything back, and this is all hormones.
Just get the feeling that Nick Matthews not quite managing to hit his targets to the extent that he would want.
Well, no, he's just hit that ball out of court, so he won't be wanting to aid the cause as Elshorbagy moves to 4-1 and is again talking away to him.
Left side, 4-1.
He's gone inside Nick Matthews' head slightly here. Tell you what, that really doesn't happen very often. There's not really anyone that can get inside his head.
No, and it's interesting because usually when there's confrontation, Nick Matthew comes out the better end from it. But here, Nick Matthew seems to almost be backing down from it in a sense. Some real power hitting from Elshorbagy here.
Backswing, stroke to Matthew. And now 2-5.
Needed that point flash there, just catching him on the arm.
No, that was a very important point for Matthew because Elshorbagy was coming on very, very strong and had a quick succession of points after that discussion they had at 2-1, I believe. So that kind of stems the bleeding for Matthew, for the time being at least.
And out, 6-2.
Well, that is a very severe drop shot from Elshorbagy. Tons of spin on that, leaving it very short to the front wall.
It's been extraordinary how long these guys have been able to play on this particular glass court in these conditions. It's been very close to an hour and a half. Goes to show the quality of the performance from both of them. It's the severest glass court I've come up against, really, around the world. There's some cold glass courts, but this one is Arctic. Getting everything back, isn't he? It's like just bouncing around.
Well, he just seems absolutely desperate for the win here, Elshorbagy. He's all over everything. He's.
Well, I can assure you one thing: if he does get through, he's just squeezing Matthew all the time, just harassing, using that bullish strength that he possesses at still quite a young age. And Matthew starting to rock as he did in the Qatar Classic back in October. There's no way that Hamid Elshorbagy, if he does win this, is not going to be sore tomorrow. Don't care how young he is, he's going to be feeling the effects of this.
Well, his recovery is going to be quite interesting because didn't he say in his interview at the start of the match that he didn't sleep till 8 a.m. this morning?
No, that was the...
Was that a previous night?
That was after losing 10 match balls against Tarak.
Well, nonetheless, losing a full night's sleep several nights ago, plus this kind of beastish squash is certainly going to take a real toll on the body. And that's not even taking into account the psychological effects of this kind of battle.
Thank you. 3-7. Yes, let. 3-7.
I really feel Nick Matthew needs to win this next point to stay in touch with Elshorbagy.
He won't with that unforced error.
And out 8-3.
Opens up a very large lead for Elshorbagy in this fifth and final game, 8-3.
Out 9-3.
I can't see Matthew coming back now.
No, certainly not, especially with the authority with which Elshorbagy's striking the ball. And Elshorbagy actually still looks quite fresh movement-wise.
It's just weird. Really, really weird. So Elshorbagy thoroughly deserves this position with 7 match balls and a place in this World Series Squash Finals final. I'm sure there'll be an absolutely massive voila. This could be it.
Down.
And there it is.
11-3. Then match to Elshorbagy. Elshorbagy wins 3-2. 9-11, 11-7, 11-6, 4-11, 11-3.
Well, both players having a bit of a discussion about a few things there, but ending on decent terms, which is good to see. Elshorbagy. This will be an interesting interview very shortly with our MC, Gilly Lane, who's just been lifted onto court. And here he comes.
Mohammed, you said that you liked Richmond earlier in this week, that you're having a great time. You must like it even more now. Your first final of a World Series, Super Series. How do you feel?
Of course, I feel amazing. It's my first time here and straight into the final. From the first time I come here, it's such an amazing feeling. And I'm just so happy I can stay here on court for one more day and play in such a front and amazing crowd like that. And I'm just so happy I just go through this tough battle, you know.
There's a lot of stops and starts in that match, a lot of lets, a lot of talking between the two of you guys. How hard is it to keep your concentration when there's just so many stops and starts in play?
You know, there are two kinds of squash players. There are the kind of squash players who believe that if your personality is not nice on court, that means that you're such a bad person off court too, you know. And there are other players who believe that whatever happens on court stays on court. And Nick Matthew is the kind of player who believes that whatever happens on court stays on court, and I'm that kind of player as well. So even like after we had such a tough match, and even after when we were shaking hands, he was just advising me. He was just pointing at me to not to do something for the next time. That's all. But otherwise, he respects the fact that it was a tough battle, and we have so much respect for each other, you know. And I'm just happy I came out winner of this battle, you know. And I just turned 23 last January, but since I started playing this sport, you know, every player has always strengths and weaknesses, and Nick's strength has been always in his mentally. He makes the game so tough and breaks you down mentally. My strength has been always that since I was 8 years old, the first day I started, whenever I went on court, I always believed that I could always beat anyone. And I just always had that belief inside me. Whenever I'm on court, I never cared who I was playing. I never cared what age I was. I always believed that if I go on court, I have two hands like the other player. I have two legs. I can do exactly the same thing he does, and I can always come out of that court and win the match, you know. And I went on court today doing the same thing, having that same belief. And I was speaking to Jonah Barrington before the match, and he told me in every area in the game, when I'm playing today, always believe you're always better than any player. And that always gives you the belief that you can beat any player in the world. And after I lost that first game, it was such a tough game mentally for me to lose. But I had that belief that I can go into that mental battle against the best squash player in the world who can go into this kind of battle. And that's what kept me going. And I was really happy I could stand on court in the 5th game like that. And even when I was tired, I could push like that in the 5th game. I'm really happy I came through like that.
Well, with this 3-2 win, you've set up a rematch tomorrow of your Saturday encounter with your countryman, Ramy Ashour. We all look forward to an exciting World Series PSA final tomorrow. Everyone, Mohamed Elshorbagy.
Well, a very interesting interview one way after that one. 94 minutes, an absolute marathon in these very savage conditions. Elshorbagy causes a major upset in this semi-final, taking out the #1 seed and world #1, Nick Matthew, 9-11, 11-7, 11-6, 4-11, 11-3. 3 games to 2.
Well, a marvelous 5th game there from Mohamed Elshorbagy. Both players started out at a fiery pace. There was a bit of controversy early on with some decisions. The players with plenty of chat, but Elshorbagy came out the better of the two. He came out more focused, more determined. His intensity level was high, his face always highly animated, and he rushed away with the 5th game and the match. Certainly a very positive performance from the young Egyptian with plenty to build on, and will be very confident going into tomorrow's final.